Tap mo'y tangata I whanua o Hawaii. Kai ata ke kau I he pōta tala o e ahoni. I begin with an honorific salutation, paying my respect to the Kanaka Oiwi, the native indigenous people of this place that allow us to be here in this particular place, and to pay homage to them, to the ancestors, and to the people who made this event possible. I want to thank the Center for Learning and Teaching, David Bybee, and also the administrators for putting this event together. I want to take the time today to talk about something that I've been doing in my course for the past 7 years that focus specifically on the concept of Talanoa. Talanoa is something that's not only unique to Tonga, but Fiji, Samoa, many of the places in Oceania that focus on conversation, on talking story, on dialogues, which is something that is very important to many of our students who comes from the Pacific, who comes from oral culture. And so today I'd like to focus some of my remarks on that. And as my title today, Talanoa, Orality is Critical Pedagogies, to focus on the use of it to create critical thinking. I want to begin with a Tongan proverb, Kai Perea, feasting upon conversation. As you know, in the Pacific, there's two important things, or one of the most important things in Pacific gathering is food. So you have to have food. The second to it is having conversation and talk story. Both have to go together. And even if you don't have food, you can still talk story, and talking story is just as good as food. So this is where the proverb I like to begin, just to ground my idea here of why orality is important for many of our students who come from the Pacific and other places. Now, there is, of course, the debate between orality and literacy. The oral talking, and then, of course, the written and the writing. And here I want to begin by just saying that producing knowledge can happen in both orality and literacy. I'm balancing both together, not privileging one over the other, but saying that both are important. Fostering critical thinking through orality and also literacy, articulating or weaving these two forms of producing knowledge together in a way that is beneficial for our students. And of course, I guess the last is I'm kind of critiquing the privileging of literacy in the academy and saying that two should be a sort of balance in the way that we think about, okay? I want to begin by just grounding this on a particular indigenous philosophy of learning and teaching that comes out from Oceania. Ako, or A'o in Hawaiian and other languages. So in Tongan and Maori is Ako, in Hawaiian and Samoan is A'o, which is the word for learning is the same word for teaching. So we use the same word. We don't distinguish. Linguistically, the words are both the same. So here I want to kind of make a focus on kind of the oneness of learning and teaching within Moana or Oceanian cultures. You'll see some pictures here. These are pictures of my students who are either in the classroom or outside the classroom working in the heiau, which is a Hawaiian temple, ancient temple, or working in the lo'i, which is a Hawaiian taro patch. And you'll see pictures of them engaging in these talanoa, both in the classroom and also outside of the classroom. Now, this indigenous philosophy of learning and teaching highlights the unity of learning and teaching, conceptualized learning and teaching, of course, as kind of the same process that's going on in people's mind. The way that I think about my classroom is based on several concepts. First, the concept of kainga. Students who come to my classroom are considered kin members. They are part of a family. They're coming into the classroom, they're a part of a family of that class, and so I refer to them as kin members. We use the concept of Febahabayake, which is mutual sharing of knowledge, and of course, the kind of mutual critiquing and co-creation of knowledge. That knowledge is something that you can co-create, co-construct by engaging in the Talanoa, engaging in the conversation. You can see here the picture here of some of the students engaging in one of my theory classes, in my anthropology theory class, and they're very engaged in this Talanoa sessions. There's also the idea of Fetokonyaki, helping one another, that learning is about helping. So I kind of shift from a process of individualism to a collective way of thinking about knowledge. And then the last concept that I use is Fonua, which is understanding people's oneness with their environment. At the bottom here, you see a picture here of students working at one of the heiau in Ha'ula. And this is the Maunawila heiau. The students are working, clearing the vegetation at the same time engaging in Talanoa with one another, to kind of help them in this particular process. Now, all these concepts are based on a communal, collective way of learning that is very common to many of the students who come from areas in Oceania or other places, including Asia. And very important for us to kind of highlight and emphasize this particular way of learning. These are students working in the Lo'i and Kahana. The histories department students also do this, but our students in anthropology, which I teach, they're working at the same time talking. Now, this Talanoa happens in the field, but also happens inside the classroom, where they're talking about the concepts. Now, just to kind of talk about the discourses, kind of in the Foucauldian sense of thinking about the way people talk about Talanoa. There's been a lot of scholars who've been talking about this, so I like to just present a few. One is Halapua, Stephen Halapua, who defines Talanoa as face-to-face storytelling, a form of coming together, talking to each other about a concept or anything, but there is this kind of element of face-to-face. Maori scholar Kepa and Tongan scholar Linda Manuatu think about Talanoa as curious dialogue, that students come and that they're curious, they want to learn, and that they engage in Talanoa in this particular sense. And then lastly, Augustino Mahina talks about Talanoa as talking critically yet harmoniously. Now, in the Talanoa session that I create in my class, there is a Talanoa leader, someone who leads the discussion. They come to class, prepare to lead the discussion. They may have taken the reading and read it more carefully than the rest of the students. Sometimes the Talanoa leaders may include 2 to 3 students. They will create questions for the students to talk about in class, and then they lead the discussion. Now, because the topic we deal with in anthropology can be quite controversial, the Talanoa can be very heated, which is good because it allows the students to figure out ways to talk to each other. And in this definition with Mahina, is not only that you can be critical, but yet still kind of create harmony within the relationship that you have with other students. And this is important, very important for Pacific Islanders, especially when you live in the small islands. You got to figure out a way to get along with everybody else. You can't run away and hide. So this is part of creating this process of Talanoa. The other way to think about it is that it's an ongoing conversation to unravel the multiple and complexities or complex meanings of a concept. So the Talanoa happens in class, happens out of class. Students get together in the library and talk about the reading before they come to class. They talk about it after class. And I see students in little groups in different places talking about it, which is very encouraging because it allows them to be active learner. Now I want to ground this on another Proverbs. or another concept, which is Fofolai Falakai Talanoa Kaina. Roll out the mat so that the kin members can sit together and talk story. In many Oceanic culture, rolling out the mat is an invitation to sit down and talk. Talk about issues that people are having problems with, or just talking, or just Talanoa. And in my class, we don't have a real map. We have kind of a metaphoric map that I create as an invitation for my students. This is in the syllabus that I create for my students to know that they are invited into. Now, I've had classes where I've asked students to bring their own maps to class, and we've tried that. That also worked, so it can work both ways, either sitting down. When I put them in the Talanoa group, they go outside. They're under the trees or in different places. Sometimes they bring maps, they bring lava, whatever it is, to sit and talk, and it allows them in the process of Talanoa. Again, the process is based on the idea that you're members of a kin, sitting together, engaging in a respectful but critical dialogue. Critical is important here, but also being respectful. We here at BYU of course, have over 70 different nationalities, and that's just counting the nationality. Once you start to look at the students' positionality as far as their gender, as far as their class, as far as other aspects of their life, this Talanoa gets pretty complex, but very enriching because you have students from many different perspectives coming together to talk about a specific issue. And that's the other aspect of being respectful, even if you disagree with other students on what you... as you can see this picture here, we also have students who may have a disability, and you have an interpreter. You have an interpreter here sitting in the middle of the Talanoa. Talanoa is going, and she is interpreting what's going on here. It seems to still work well within this particular group. Students are asked to come to class fully prepared to discuss the reading. Now, when you have to engage in a Talanoa, this really pushes you to prepare. Coming to class not being prepared, the peer group, everybody talking and asking you, all of a sudden you feel like you haven't done the reading. So this is one of the ways that I get the students to prepare to come to engage in a Talanoa. Students participate in this kind of learning, which is very communal, engages one another. They are graded on this. Students will fail my class if they do not participate in a Talanoa. I take the orality and the literacy seriously. So one of the things that it does is that it encourages students to come to class, because you cannot engage in a Talanoa unless you're in class, so it solves the attendance problem. The other problem is that every time they engage in a Talanoa, I count that as grade. I grade their Talanoa by their participation. At the end, I weigh their Talanoa sessions almost to the same level as their midterm and their final. Now, their midterm and their finals are written. So this is how I balance both the orality and the literacy. They write essays for their midterm and their final, but the rest of the class are all about engaging in these Talanoa. A lot of students seem to like it. They seem to enjoy this particular process of engaging in the process of Talanoa. Now, class members are encouraged to draw from their local and situated knowledge. These are knowledge derived from their lived experience, and because we have students from many different parts of the world and very diverse students, the Talanoa here, they're pulling from many. There's students who are sitting down, students from Korea, students from Tonga or Samoa, students from Japan are actually engaging, and they're talking about what's going on in their country, and it's very, very enriching for them. So here's the kind of the co-creation of knowledge that happens within the class. I remind students that valuable knowledge exists outside of the textbook. So here, the textbook, yes, is good. We have lots of knowledge in the textbook, but there is a lot more of knowledge that are outside of the textbook. So this is part of the other aspect of the Talanoa. So maybe to just kind of talk about the benefits of this. It's communal learning, it's a co-creating, co-constructing, co-producing of knowledge, the sharing of local and situated knowledge, the critiquing and fostering of critical thinking with the students. This is a mutual process, preparing them to come to class, and then of course it makes them active learners. There are much more things that are happening. This is just part of some of the benefits that happen here. Of course, there are students who come from places that do not like to participate in Talanoa. But I think after taking many of them who take the class, after a while get used to it and they enjoy the process, and they're always asking me to give them an opportunity to participate in Talanoa. Now, I've started experimenting with Talanoa and taking it online. So here is digital Talanoa about digital culture. Yes, that is me right there. If you've ever done Google Plus is where you have a conversation with at least 10 other people. These are my students. You can see them at the bottom. Those are the students who are having a Talanoa with me online, but you can put these funny glasses and stuff like that. Now, I taught this class on anthropology of digital culture. And of course, anthropologists, one of the ways that you learn about a culture is immerse yourself in it. So for our class, one of the things that we did was hold these digital Talanoa where students were at their home or somewhere in the library, and we get together and we talk about what it means to be in that particular space. And it was very enriching to talk about that space, the culture of that space, at the same time to participate in that particular process. This is something I've only done once, and it fits the class that I have done, but I think it's also a possibility for other ways of engaging. It's a different feel of Talanoa. It's still face-to-face, but it feels a little bit different from what you do in the classroom, but still it is another process of engaging in the Talanoa. And